During the 1890s, the Dalton Gang inflicted terror while carrying out a deadly string of train robberies in California and Oklahoma. A fateful attempt to rob two banks simultaneously in a Kansas town would seal the Dalton name as epic in the annals of the Old West. Brothers Bob and Grat Dalton and two accomplices were slaughtered during the infamous Coffeeville, Kansas bank robbery. Their graves are tourist attractions today. But what became of the remains of Bill Dalton, hunted down in 1894 after his latter gang committed a robbery spree? On this episode of History Hunters, Jeff and Sarah explore the mysterious whereabouts of Bill Dalton's remains and learn why he's in an unmarked grave 1,500 miles from where he was killed by marshals.
Okay, got the mail.
No tax return?
No tax return. But I got my book. It's about the Daltons. You know anything about the Daltons?
I know nothing about the Daltons.
The Daltons were one of the biggest gangs in the Old West. It was a big family, 15 kids, but 10 only lived to be adults. 4 of them decided they were going to go into crime. And incidentally, the first crime that they committed was in our valley.
Why are you interested in the Daltons?
I've been fascinated with the Daltons because my grandparents were from Livingston. And guess where the Daltons lived? They lived in Livingston. There was a house there on Main Street that everybody said Bill Dalton had been buried in the yard of. But I never saw the house because it was torn down probably in the 1950s.
Your grandparents lived in Livingston, and they told you the stories about the Daltons?
The story is he was dug up from the front yard of his father-in-law's house, and he was placed in the Turlock Cemetery.
It's just ironic, the fact that some of the biggest of the Old West criminal outlaws actually lived in Livingston.
And the Daltons are infamous or famous because
of what happened in Coffeeville, Kansas.
Okay.
They decided they were going to rob 2 banks at one time, and it didn't go very well for them. Well, I think this is our next history hunt.
Well, what are we hunting?
Well, we're going to find out where Bill Dalton is actually buried. But viewer discretion advised.
Viewer discretion is advised?
Because this is going to be one ugly history hunt.
Wait.
Yeah.
Why?
There's a lot of pictures that are available of all these dead outlaws.
Oh, dead people.
Yeah.
Dead people photos.
Yeah, like they pull their chest open and you can see the bullet holes in their chest. Yeah.
Wait, no. Pull the shirt open?
Yeah.
Not the chest open.
Oh, no. That's an autopsy.
There's a distinct difference.
February 6th, 1891, Unmarked, California. Just before 8 p.m., armed bandits jump aboard a moving train on the Southern Pacific Railroad in California's Great Central Valley. Passengers and crewmen are terrified when shots are fired, and they demand the engineer to halt the train as they attempt to break into the express car. An armed guard perched inside the express car fires upon the robbers, who retreat into the darkness empty-handed and leave the train firemen dead. Sensationalized in newspapers, the crime sparks public outrage. Clues lead lawmen to the Dalton brothers in Tulare County. Around 1880, they had arrived in California from the Midwest to find work. Authorities believed the robbery to be the work of Bob Dalton, Grat Dalton, Emmett Dalton, and Bill Dalton. Family man Bill Dalton was arrested at a ranch in Cholame, interrogated and cleared. Bob and Emmett remained elusive while Grat was arrested and held in Visalia, where he was found guilty on July 3, 1891. While awaiting sentencing, Grat escaped jail and was nearly captured by Sheriff Eugene Kay in the foothills east of Fresno. Grat Dalton fled to Oklahoma, where his brothers were engaged in stealing horses and robbing trains. A decade before the Central California train robbery, Bill and his brothers had settled in Merced County, where they found work on the Turner Ranch situated along the San Joaquin River, and the Stevenson Ranch 6 miles south of Livingston.
There is a story in this book that I found to be very humorous, and I guess it illustrates Bill Dalton's sense of humor. When his brother Grat was tending bar in Livingston, he decided to play a practical joke on him. He placed this dead cat inside of a shoebox and then hid it underneath some rags. The stench was so bad that it drove all the customers away from the bar before Grat even knew what was going on. How would you like to have a brother like that?
So I had a sister that beat the crap out of me. I don't know. Puts dead things under rags.
What did your sister do to you?
That's not what
Bill eventually became a ranch hand for Cyrus Bliven, whose attractive daughter, Jane Bliven, caught Bill's eye. In June 1885, the couple married in Livingston, where they began raising 2 children. When Cyrus Bliven built a 2-story mansion in 1889, his daughter's young family took up residence there.
I have come to this spot about a mile south of the Ceres Railroad Depot because it was here on September 3rd, 1891 that men stormed the train and they used a stick of dynamite to blow open the express car. The first suspect in the case was Bill Dalton. He was arrested in Traver. He was brought to Visalia and he was taken to Modesto where he had a preliminary trial. Judge Lauren Fulkerth decided that there was a lack of evidence and they turned him loose. But it left a bitter taste in his mouth.
Law enforcement officials eventually pinned the series robbery on outlaws John Sontag and Christopher Evans. With his name tainted by wrongful arrests for 2 California train robberies, Bill left Jane and their children in Livingston on November 15, 1891, to join his brothers in Oklahoma. While living with his mother in Kingfisher, Bill wrote to Jane hinting of his involvement in the Dalton family criminal enterprise. Coffeeville, Kansas, October 5, 1892. Having committed a string of robberies throughout the Midwest, the Dalton Gang devises a brazen yet foolish plan to rob 2 banks simultaneously. Storekeepers sense trouble as the 5 suspicious men wearing fake beards ride into town and tie up their horses in a nearby alley before walking to the banks. After cries of robbery go up, a fierce 12-minute shootout erupts, leaving 8 dead and many injured. 4 citizens are killed along with gang members Bob and Grat Dalton, Bill Power, and Dick Broadwell. Despite being shot numerous times, Emmett Dalton was captured and nursed to health only to spend 17 years in prison. While accompanying his mother to Coffeeville to bury their dead kin, Bill Dalton angered locals when he told them,
"Those boys were wrong for trying to rob the banks, but they were right when they shot the men who were trying to kill them."
Something else I found interesting about Bill Dalton is when his two brothers and their gang got killed, he got upset because they dragged all 4 bodies, kind of dumped them in a pile there in the jail, and he was indignant that they had mistreated the bodies. Now, how do you think you'd feel if that were your brothers and you knew that they just robbed the bank and everybody was pissed off at them? Would you care?
Do you stop caring about your family members when they do something stupid?
Despite his outlaw brothers dead or in jail, Bill Dalton teamed up with Bill Doolin to rob banks and trains throughout the Midwest. Hot on their trail, authorities surrounded the gang in an Ingalls, Oklahoma saloon on September 1st, 1893. Dalton escaped by blasting his way out and killing Marshal Lafayette Shadley. In mid-May 1894, Bill announced he was traveling to Texas, then kissed Jane and children goodbye. Days later, yet another new gang of his robbed the First National Bank in Longview. At 3 p.m. on May 23, 1894, Bill, Jim Wallace, and Jim and Judd Knight entered the bank. While armed with a shotgun, Dalton handed the manager a note. As in Coffeeville, robbery cries rally civilians and lawmen to engage the robbers in a bloody gunfight. Wallace and 2 defenders were killed. Dalton fled with approximately $2,000, but a label in Wallace's hat directs lawmen to him near Ada, 260 miles away. On June 8th, Jane and a friend went shopping with Bill's newfound wealth. She would not see her husband alive again. Deputies descended upon the Wallace farm in Poolville. Bill was alerted to dual approaching posses and ran to fetch a gun inside the cabin. He exited through a side window in a mad dash for the creek behind the cabin. Before he reaches it, Dalton is shot dead by Deputy Selden Lindsay.
It had often been said that when Bill Dalton died, he would go to the shadowy land accompanied by a number of persons, and that any man who faced him in the last great duel of his life would bear him company. But he was killed like some pitiable chicken thief, and the glamour of romance and daring thrown around his life by his brave and lawless deeds proved that law and justice are supreme, and must in the end be triumphant. Clarence B. Douglas of the Daily Oklahoman.
The young, grief-stricken widow abandoned Oklahoma to escort Bill's body back to Livingston by train. The decision was made to bury the infamous outlaw in the sandy loam of the front yard of the Bliven home. Accounts placed his grave between 2 palm trees, nearer to the mansion's left corner. During internet research, Jeff locates Joe Ulrich, whose family owned the historic Bliven mansion in the 1940s. He agrees to share his experience of growing up in the home before it was dismantled.
You see, for a long time it was not occupied. It was considered a haunted house, and no one would live in it. And Cyrus Bliven himself was a spiritualist, and he held seances there. There were certain rooms that were designated spirit rooms and all that, and us kids didn't know much about it when we moved in there, but we later found out which ones that we'd been living in one of the spirit rooms.
That was creepy.
And later on I had a room down in the cellar. It wasn't very far from where we knew that Bill Dalton had been buried, in between those 2 palm trees. And at nighttime I would lay down there thinking, Bill Dalton's just a little distance from me. And I was always scared when I was sleeping down there. I was down there by myself. We were told that he was moved to the Turlock Cemetery. There was some people that thought that he had been moved to somewhere back in Oklahoma, probably where his family lived. But then most of them had died off by then. Most people think that he's still in the Turlock Cemetery. One night I woke up to this terrible groaning noise. I mean, so help me God, I don't believe in ghosts, but I heard this moaning and coming from the other part of the cellar, and it made my hair stand on end, and it continued for quite a while, and then it stopped, and all I could think of was Bill Dalton was just a few feet away. We was buried there. Is he still there? You know, things like that as a kid. On one of our walls, Emmett Dalton's name was scrawled. We don't know if it was legitimate or not, but that was there on one of the walls, Emmett Dalton. In fact, Farker himself was visiting Livin's gravesite there one day, and he ran across Jane Livin. She was there visiting the gravesite. And unfortunately, there's nothing in the book that mentions whether she told him that he was still there. She was quite standoffish, naturally didn't want to discuss it, but she did talk to him a little bit. All of them came into town quite often, and they shopped in Livingston. They shopped with a local, Mr. Weaver was one of them who owned a dry goods store. And he said they were all upstanding, they all paid their bills on time and treated them very respectfully.
Joe agrees to take the short ride to Livingston to pinpoint for Jeff the exact location of the Cyrus Blivin mansion.
So I was reading this morning about Jane, and she apparently knew what Bill was up to, didn't she?
Oh, I'm sure she did. Like a lot of women, you know, they're faithful to their husband regardless.
Kind of looked the other way, because the thing that astounds me is that she came from a rather well-to-do family, and then she hooked up with, I don't know, I guess he seemed like a charming guy in the beginning, good-looking guy, and then he starts going into the shady lifestyle. I wonder what she thought.
Probably didn't care for it, but probably had no choice. I think he was going to do it regardless.
Are we out in the sticks yet?
Well, you're at the edge of town.
Okay. Right where the circle is.
To get an authoritative answer on Bill Dalton's burial, Jeff meets with Turlock Cemetery General Manager Scott Atherton, also a local historian.
So let me ask you what you know about the Dalton grave. Apparently, Cyrus Blevin lost the house, according to Lit, in about 1896. And at that point, he was dug up and supposedly brought here. I'm just wondering if you have any records that would indicate yes or no, is he here?
No, we don't. We don't have any just concrete records saying that yes, he's in that lot. Cyrus probably lost his place like a lot of people did the 1890s, where it was really rough on this area, and a lot of people from Turlock moved away.
What happened in the 1890s?
Well, the soil was depleted from planting wheat, grain products year after year after year. And then there was the Depression, the Panic of 1893. It would have been comparable to the Depression, the stock market crash in 1929.
In 1896, the same year that Cyrus Bliven lost or sold his Livingston property and Bill Dalton's body was quietly relocated to Turlock, old partner Bill Doolin met his own fate with lawmen in Lawson, Oklahoma. Scott allows Jeff to borrow Dalton family research materials collected by cemetery staff members.
This is, you'll find everything that has been collected over the years.
Now, you said that you actually got to speak to some relatives and they were very standoffish and
Basically
hung up on you.
hung up on me.
Who were they?
You know, I'd have to dig through there here again. They were like grandchildren of
Chubb?
Chubb.
Chubb was the nickname used by Bill Dalton's only son. Charles Coleman Dalton was born in 1885 and died in 1967. Oddly, his obituary appearing in the Lodi News Sentinel made no mention of the fact that he was Bill Dalton's son.
Chubb, right.
Wow.
Or great-grandchildren.
And they didn't want to talk about it.
No, they're the one I...
Before leaving, Scott invites Jeff to return to watch cemetery staff probe the ground of the Bliven family plot for Bill Dalton's lead casket. Coincidences mount for Jeff. From 1882 until 1884, Lit Dalton worked in the Turlock Hotel, which was located in the block north of Jeff's workplace at the Turlock newspaper office. Bill Dalton reportedly visited Lit and may have also worked at the hotel, which has been replaced by a Jack-in-the-Box restaurant. The early-day Turlock newspaper also carried an 1889 mention of Bill Dalton's visit to the paper office. Jeff and Sarah head out to the Turlock Cemetery in search of Bill Dalton's secret grave.
This dude survived Pearl Harbor at some point. Well, for a while.
Cyrus Bliven we need to find.
We have to find Cyrus Bliven's grave.
Cyrus Bliven is where Bill Dalton is buried.
Okay, so lead the way. Dizzy G.
Dizzy Gillespie? I don't think so. I think you're dizzy.
Are you done? Steven's done. Oh, Hubert and Grace are done too.
My girlfriend. I don't know about her. These people were really bright.
Leave the comedy to me.
So this is not the President of the United States.
No,
Sarah's back there finding presidents that aren't really buried here. She's on a bunny trail. She's always on a bunny trail. What? James Brown, the actor?
no. Would it be singer? Isn't James Brown a singer?
Yeah. Pop, 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 pop. I feel good. Na, 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 na.
What are we doing?
Cyrus Bliven.
Oh.
It's a tall kind of what do you call it? Obelisk thing. Oh my gosh. Guess what? There it is.
Okay, so who's here?
Cyrus was the dad. These are the kids. Debbie B and Lou. There's six plots here. And there's only 4 people that are listed as being buried here. Bill Dalton's buried around here somewhere.
Jeff makes a startling discovery in the same row of graves where his grandfather rests. He stumbles upon the tombstone of Stonewall Jackson Allen, who worked alongside Lit Dalton at the Turlock Hotel. Stoney was the son of hotel owner Eliza Allen Streen, who hired Lit Dalton.
There it is. We didn't have to scour this ginormous.
No. We didn't have to scour it. It's right here.
Hey, look. Tiger Swallowtail.
He's in the same row as my grandfather.
I chased those around when I was in 4th grade trying to catch him with a sweater.
All right. Looking for the grave of
Part of the sidewalk?
Frank Adams. Frank Adams. Frank Adams was the second husband of Jane Dalton. So he's buried over here somewhere.
Ah, there he is.
Oh, what a coincidence. Hi, Mr. Adams.
Well, actually, that's the son. See, he was 22. J.F. Adams, that's her second husband. Died in 1930. Full of history, aren't we? Just got a call from Scott Atherton, and he said that he is ready to probe the grave of Bill Dalton. It will be interesting to see exactly where they pinpoint the grave. It's a lead casket, so they should definitely hit a hard spot in the ground there when they find it. So would a lead coffin actually survive all this time, or would you be able to puncture it?
I'll be able to puncture a lead casket.
But you would know.
Huh?
You would know if you hit it.
I got the point sharp. I don't know if I could be able to tell.
No. You didn't? Don't walk out. It's like they're having a difficult time finding it. Getting a workout today, huh? So it looks like Bill Dalton's not resting too comfortably in his grave today because there's a lot of probing going on behind me.
That way more?
Yeah, let's go.
So I count 4 of them.
Right. But theoretically, see, this monument is in the center of these six lots. So that's about where Catherine would be. Oh, wait a minute, John, look. I have a little mark in here, down in here. Bill Dalton with a question mark. I didn't see that. Way over by the edge.
he moves it over, he hits it like in another 2 feet, then it could be in the grave of Bill Dalton.
He's got it. They won't let go.
You said Bill's got it and he won't let go? So what, when you moved it over a foot?
18 inches.
Okay.
I want to see if whatever's hard is still there or we're missing it.
Okay.
There is a strange series of coincidences that parallel my life with that of the Daltons. My parents were married down the street from where Bill Dalton was married to his wife Jane. My great-grandparents lived blocks from the mansion where the Daltons resided. In fact, my mother once stayed in the house. My grandfather worked on a Merced County ranch, not far from the ground where Bill Dalton worked. Before her death, my grandmother attended the church, which now occupies the site where the Bliven Mansion was located, the very ground that Bill Dalton walked on. And as it turns out, not only does my daily route to work take me within feet of Bill Dalton's grave, but he's buried just 10 rows from my dad's dad, whom I never knew. I find it rather symbolic that Bill Dalton's body was planted in the grave farthest from the family, but give them credit for including a notorious outlaw to lie in the dust with them. Shame seems to cast a long shadow over the Bliven family plot. Bill Dalton is buried here all right, but not having been considered worthy of a marker. Did the family fear that people would make a spectacle of the grave, like what's still occurring at the graves of Grat and Bob Dalton in Coffeeville? There is the possibility that Jane and her folks feared somebody might dig him up and steal the body. Maybe they were just very ashamed. Shame likely followed Jane the rest of her life. No doubt she was scorned for knowing about Bill's life of crime and doing nothing about it, only enjoying the fruits of his ill-gotten gains. But she managed to get on with her life, and a year later married a man named Joseph Frank Samuel Adams, and raised 2 of his children. For a while, not a single photographic likeness of her came to light. All that changed through the diligent effort made by my Uncle Roy, who found a photo of Jane as Mrs. Frank Adams. This is Jane, as she appeared with her new family, about 26 years after that faithful shopping trip she made with money stolen from the Longview, Texas bank robbery. In this dusty Central California town, people go about their business completely unaware of the legendary Western outlaw buried here in an unmarked grave. The bad guy who made headlines throughout the country 125 years ago lies quietly on a corner opposite convenience stores like Circle K. It's hard to know who the real Bill Dalton was. Newspaper reports of his day were rife with gross factual errors and fanciful embellishments. Absent the facts as time goes on, people have made up things that get passed on as the truth. But one thing is true. The shot-up body of William Mason Frakes Dalton is buried in his second resting place near the corner of Tully and West Main Streets in Turlock, California.